Right. Well, hello. I'm making this video. I want to begin talking about something that I recently put on my website, on my blog post, something that's really important in everybody's lives. But for me, it's been one of the biggest struggles. But I think that's relatable. I think that for a lot of people, it's a big struggle, and it's a skill that people don't necessarily build up, because they don't know to build it up, and that's fair enough. But if there's anything I can do to make other people's lives a little bit better, through my pain and my life lessons, then I should do it. So here we go. Flexibility, or improvisation, or just going with the flow, it's kind of mastering the art of being in the now, being in the situation, and having a goal and a destination you want to go to, but not necessarily knowing how you're going to get there, and being okay with that. And so when potential situations arise that you don't know if they're going to lead to what you want, but they're interesting, it's about getting over yourself, really, getting over your comfort zone in order to go out there and do that. I wouldn't even know where to start with examples, but I'm going to reiterate what I said on my blog post and say that every time you get yourself over that initial uncomfortableness to do something outside of your comfort zone, you don't regret it. You may regret the activity, or may not enjoy it, but you never regret actually doing the initial hurdle process and going over that. Never. So where should I start? I guess I can give a little bit of a background into where I tried to kind of psychoanalyze myself before and work out why I didn't like the idea of flexibility, and how I much prefer stability, and that was what I always wanted. And I remember first thinking those sorts of thoughts at the Tony Robbins seminar I had been to, which did change my life, and it was amazing. But you try and fight, you're resistant to change. Some people say it's a natural thing. I'm not sure if I think it's a natural thing. I think it's a inherited belief system we have nowadays, and I think that's not great. It's like an inherited diet that's not good, like the Western diet we've got at the minute, but that's a story for another time. So yeah, I remember being very resistant, because the kind of Tony Robbins talks about bullshit belief stories, so things you tell yourself to reassert to yourself that you're right. And so my bullshit belief with flexibility was that I had grown up in a very unstable environment, and that I could do with some stability and some staticness, and that was the best thing for me, was to be able to settle into a routine and to be comfortable with that. So yeah, even just thinking about that now makes me itch. I'm physically itching right now, itching my leg, thinking, oh my god, that was awful. But that's what I had convinced myself. And so I guess a little bit of background into that was I grew up with my mum and dad, and in a kind of very unstable environment. They weren't good parents, they were neglectful, and there was a lot of instability around my kind of primary needs, such as being fed, being cleaned, being clothed, knowing where I would be living, knowing that my mum would still be there in the morning, all those sorts of things. And so I had kind of almost been raised to believe that flexibility was wrong, flexibility was bad and dangerous. And so yeah, and it wasn't till the kind of Tony Robbins when I first started getting into personal development, and I had a change of the people around me as well, and that's very important to know. The people around you make a huge difference in your life, whether you want them to or not. I had moved to university, I had got my first kind of serious boyfriend and was living with his family, and they were crazy people who, again, had so much flexibility in them. I remember saying that they had so much flexibility that they had no rigidness to them. They had no backbone as such. They had no way to kind of just exist normally. And I think that, again, looking back now, I think that was a good thing. It definitely taught me a lesson in how to be more flexible. So all of this has been huge practice in developing this skill, because it is a skill and it does take a lot of hard work, not physical hard work. It takes a lot of mental hard work, ignoring yourself and just doing it anyway. A bit like kind of I guess like putting a gun, it feels like putting a gun to your head. You're not sure if it's loaded, you're putting it to your head, you know that's a very dangerous thing to do, and you're pulling the trigger in the belief that actually it's going to do you some good. So yeah, that was pretty much how flexibility felt like to me. So I remember it was the summer before I started university, and I was living in one room in the middle of this house of multiple occupancy in Hartlepool in the northeast, a place I had never been to and never had any idea existed. I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and we were living off a very small income and I was preparing for this huge step in life I didn't know what to expect from it. At the same time, we were property investors, and we were getting into business, and we were moving around all the time. So where I spent the summer in Hartlepool, I was spent a week here in Oldham fixing up a house, and then a week in Preston, and then 2 weeks in a place in Liverpool, Walton in Liverpool, and then another place in Bootle in Liverpool, and then back to Manchester, and then let's go on a random trip to Coventry, and then back down to London to see my family. It was hectic, and that continued for sort of the next, so from 2010 till about 2015 when I moved to Wales. That was my life. I had no permanent address, I had no permanent home, no structure, and I felt like a nomad, and it taught me a lot of things. I let go of a lot of material possessions that I had, and I was kind of very comfortable living with very little. At the same time, it was very uncomfortable, and I did suffer in terms of having a routine with my health. There were some bad bits, but I guess like I said earlier, the entire experience I don't regret. I just regret a few things within that. So yeah, I had that on top of my previous childhood, and all of that kind of seemed to me like a terrible idea and an uncomfortable way to live. And at the same time, reflecting back on it now, I think that was amazing. How many people can say that they have lived the life of a nomad for 5 years in property investment, and how many people have lived in the same goddamn house their entire life? My grandparents had lived in the same house since 1983, and they moved out about 2 years ago now. That is crazy. And I tried to work it out. I must have had over 20 addresses, some permanent, some not permanent, over the course of those 5 years. And it was amazing. I got to see so many different places, and I got to meet all these different people, and instead of having one set circle of people that I grew up with, my mum, my dad, my friends at school, my work friends, etc., I met people everywhere and developed all these skills. So there are definitely things to be grateful for. It improved my life and the variety of life as well. I couldn't imagine growing up in a very small, quiet way, only doing a set number of things with a set number of people. To me, that seems absolutely boring. So, yeah, that was brilliant. Where was I going with this? So, yes, I had some big struggles with flexibility. And over the years, I did develop the skill, and not necessarily voluntarily either. Sometimes I was kind of almost forced into it, but it really benefited me to. It kind of increases the levels of, fuck this, I'm doing it anyway. Kind of, it's definitely, I don't know what the official name for it is, but there should be some kind of scientific name for that energy that arises within your brain, where you can choose to listen to your brain, understand it, and say, fuck off, I'm not doing that, and do what you believe is best rather than what your brain is really telling you. And I believe the more you can improve that skill, the better your life will be. Yeah, and I find that even now, recently, in my life in Wales, which has become a bit more stable. I have a full-time job. I have my own house. You can see a little bit of mess in the background. I find that the idea of flexibility is something I need to reintroduce. And so I thought, why not tell people about it? Because everybody has these experiences. It's not just me. I haven't lived this magical life that other people don't live. Other people have amazing lives too. It's just that they may not necessarily put any thought to it, any conscious thought about it. And so I wanted to just kind of explain to people that this is a thing that has happened in your life and is happening, and it's happened in my life too, and it still is happening, and let's talk about it and let's share it, because the more we share about it, maybe the more conscious choices we can make about it. Yeah. So flexibility is something to improve. And it's a good idea to get good role models. I mean, last time when I had to learn about all this flexibility when I was at uni in property, I had a set of people around me who were more flexible than I am, and they had a better quality of life than I did because of that. But I learned to become like them, and I learned to become like them, and therefore I gained a better quality of life. And I find the same happening now. So I have a really good role model in my life in terms of flexibility, and that's a really good way to do that, because the people around you can encourage you, and although it's not their job to do that, it certainly does help. Especially if you want to have fun and you want to have a good time, you are more likely to do it. So I hope this doesn't sound like I've been rambling on. It's my first ever video, really, I've made with intent to share. I've made personal videos before. I tend to swear a lot or get kind of really emotional or just kind of look off into the distance. So bear with me on this. They will get better as I make more, and I will make more. So yeah, that's a little disclaimer there. But yeah, I think that's really it I wanted to share about flexibility. I mean, I could go into all the exact specific details, but at the end of the day, I don't believe that you really need that. You don't need to know exactly what time I chose to do this and how that changed my life. I think that the basic lessons can be taught just from listening to me and understanding. And if you don't understand, let me know, please, and so I can make more videos to explain more. And to just I think we understand each other by listening to each other's emotions on this. So trust me on this, guys. Flexibility is good. It doesn't look good. It lies to you. It looks like the worst thing in the world. Sometimes it can feel like the worst thing in the world, but it is the best thing in your world. One tiny iota of flexibility can make huge possibilities happen. So don't give up on it.